You're probably noticing that this assignment doesn't have as clear of a walkthrough as the other ones, and it's pretty much because there's not really one exact thing everyone will be doing. Everyone's assignment will be a little bit different. So in this one, I'll just show you one option of data that you can compare. And I'll download this file called assignment 4, optional exercise files. It's where the last video left off. I'll go ahead and put this on the desktop. And as before, map document in this package that we can open up. The other two folders in this package contain the geodata that this is linking to. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get rid of this lower 48. That's one we won't be using. So I'll just right click and remove. Now I want to show you something in here, and for this example I'll zoom in kind of up by Minnesota here. In a previous video I showed you how to manually go in and delete these water bodies, and I said you had to manually do it because there was no attribute information that we could quickly select to remove those. Well, in this particular one there is. This is imported county information direct from the nationalatlas.gov website, and if you organize the attribute table by county, you'll notice a bunch of these don't have names, and the reason they don't have names is because they're bodies of water. So I just did a shift select, and if I go back to my map I can see that everything that's a body of water is selected. So I could go and start an edit session and delete these, but I'll show you another way and actually tie this in with another little tutorial that will probably be helpful. As you can see, the county shapefile data from National Atlas is, there's quite a lot of it. So you may want to focus in on a certain area for this assignment. And an example is just the tri-state area. You know, everyone's got a tri-state area. Ours is probably North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. So let me deselect that first. And I'll just move this up so we can peek at it from time to time. I'll go back to the attributes table. And as before, we are going to select what we want through the Select by Attributes button. We've been here before. So this is what our SQL statement will look like. We want to say select from here where the state is equal to, and I could do a get unique values and click through here, but it's pretty hard to mess this up. Just have to remember to keep it in single quotes. MN, and I think it needs to be capitalized. MN or state equals North Dakota or state equals South Dakota. I don't believe spaces matter. The SQL statement knows when something is a conditional or the name of an attribute or the name of an attribute value, depending on if it has single, double quotes, or is just a word like or and. So let's go ahead and hit apply. An invalid SQL statement was used. Whoops. What did I do? Or state, oh yeah, right there. Or state equals South Dakota. So if I move this out of the way, I can see that it's got the 3 states, but we've got our little issue here of a body water, or a part of the lake that's also selected. We don't want that. And we will use the county attribute and its values to take those out. And we could do this to remove them from the whole map if we wanted to. But for this example, we just need to know that its value is set to nothing. Now, I may talk about this more later on. Values can be one of several things. They can be something, like a name, which is a string. They can be a value, and there's a whole bunch of different values. It might appear that there's nothing there, but this is really one of 3 things. It's either null, which doesn't mean 0, it just means nothing. There's nothing even definable. So that's what it is if it's null. If there's something there and it's just nothing, like a a string with no characters in it, we have to tell it that, which this one is. So this one is in fact not null, but it's also not 0, and it's also not nothing. I'll explain that in a moment. Let's go back to the select by attributes, and I'll change the query statement here to add and that's the county name. County is, oh, and not and as in the SQL statement. This is in addition to something I showed you before. I want to show you the correct way to do a not. Before, in a previous video, I thought you could do exclamation point equals and then whatever you didn't want it to be. But that exclamation point does not work. So I got rid of that. Let's get rid of this. The correct way to do it is to put it inside an entire not parenthetical statement. So on the other side of this, I'm going to say not county, and notice I've started my parentheses there, equals nothing. And notice what I did for nothing. I just put 2 single quotes. So this is saying, give me my states if they equal those names, and if the county name is not equal to nothing. We're close but not quite, but let's just see what we get. Let's hit apply, move this out of the way, and it's still selected. This kind of has to do with the order that mathematical statements happen in. If you say, you know, this times this plus this divided by this, it depends on what order those happen in to give you the correct value. So to tell this the correct order to do these, we just need to put that first part in its own parentheses. So all the way up to here. Okay, so I'll give you a moment to digest this. But we've got inside our first parenthetical statement, state is equal to this, or this, or this. They will be selected. Now, after that is selected or decided upon, it'll look at and the county name is not equal to nothing. Okay, got all that? Let's hit apply and see what happens. Hit apply. Whew, there we go. It worked. So now we can close this. We can close, oh, that closes automatically. Now instead of deleting everything else but this, which destructs the geodata, we'll just export it. And you do that by right-clicking on the data name, go to data, and I'll do an export data. Selected features, looks good. Just to keep this nice and orderly, I'm going to put this in a new folder called ndsdmn, and I'll also give it that same name, ndsdmn. Make sure that the save as type is shapefile. And this time we will add it, or at least for this example. And now I can see I can turn everything else off. So we're actually going to delete that county layer, but there's actually something worth showing here before I jump to the next video. And it has to do with just creating new maps from other maps. One very useful thing we can do with this is merge, or I guess it's actually called dissolve. Merge is completely something different, but we will dissolve all of this information into one shape. Now if you've used something like Illustrator, Illustrator calls it union under its pathfinder. If you're doing a Boolean operation, it's like a combine, but in ArcGIS, it's called a dissolve. And what I'll do is highlight, actually it doesn't matter that you have that selected, but this particular tool is underneath the Geoprocessing tab, and I'll select dissolve. So I'm going to show you something here and then just go ahead and delete it, but it's something that it's worth knowing about. So for my input features, I'm telling it to select that county layer. For the output feature class, now it's trying to put it into a default geodatabase. We haven't created any geodatabases yet, so we need to tell this to put it somewhere else. I'll just make a new folder, call this one temp output. And for the name, it doesn't really matter. It's just something I'm going to get rid of. And as before, we need to tell it, oh, never mind. I guess it's only letting us pick one drop down here, but shapefile is a feature class. Inside this folder, hit save. All right, so that tells it where to go. Dissolve the optional fields, don't worry about. The create multi-part feature, what that is saying is it will put all of these little islands that are off of Florida and Maine and everywhere else into one shapefile. Otherwise, it would create one for each little polygon. So for the rest of that, we will just keep it as is, do an OK. It'll think for a moment here. Whoops, and interestingly, I must have not had the right thing selected because it only dissolved my states that I was looking at before. So I'm sure if you were to re-watch that, you'd see what I did wrong. But the idea remains the same. You can take different shapefiles and put them into one. So yeah, actually, who knows? We might actually use that. So I'll keep that. Get rid of this. And we'll just put this down below here. So here's the boundaries or the extents of the area that I will apply a database file to and eventually create a map from.